Okay, let's put some of that knowledge to practice here. Let's first start by creating a new project here. I'm going to create a new image size, and you have a couple of presets. You can also work from the current size and just make it half that size or double. You can also constrain it, so if you change one, like the width, it will automatically change the height as well. So let's say if I'm doing 1, 2, 3, 4, you'll see the same value for the height at the same time. So these are really convenient if you need to quickly reduce the size to half the original or double size. There's a couple of presets for very commonly used dimensions. Another way that we could get started here is to actually load an image. And let's do that. Let's go open and navigate through your file system. And of course, what you see here will depend a little bit on the Windows setting and which version of Windows you have, whether you have dynamic zoom into the size of the thumbnails and that sort of thing. So I'm going to grab this one. Here's a planet image I created a while back with a bunch of filters. Let's load that and just keep it along. It's a very large image. If I zoom out to 100% here, this will show me at the current size, and if I squeeze it into the borders, this one here is fit the image into the window. There's a shortcut keyboard function key F4 also for that. That will show you the entire image. And so what I'll do is I'll just store that, and this is a very common practical thing to do if you work with images, especially of different dimensions, different sizes, and you want to fit one into the other. There's all sorts of reasons to do that. I'm going to load another image now. I'm going to open perhaps one that I have in this image sequence I saved earlier in another video. So here I have a whole image sequence, a frame sequence. You see that frame 0, frame 1, frame 2. I'm going to grab this one and open that, and that will replace the image with this new one. And here I can also use my thumbnail on my thumb wheel on my mouse to zoom in and out. And I can store this image as well. So I have now 2 images that I've stored. So these are images you can quickly work with. You click here, it will load that in. But this is a much bigger one than the current placeholder for this image that I had loaded. This one fits in perfectly because it was the one that we had loaded in there to create this new image. When I load this one, clicking here, it's not fitting in there anymore because that one was much bigger. So if I want to fit in there, I can actually do so. Let me move this over so you can see that. If I click here or anywhere on here on this image, on the image menu, you can see that you can actually paste the image, scaling it to the buffer. So the image buffer is the container. It's kind of like your canvas. And you can go and paste the image in the center. That's that, but you only see what fits in there. Anything beyond it is not going to be shown there. Or you can have it fit and scaled to the buffer, and then that way you'll see it all in there. Of course, it's a smaller image than the original, and so if you want to actually have the original and work with that again, what you'll do is you replace the existing image and it creates a new image, right? And so that will replace the old one and get rid of it, and now you have the old the new big one back in place here. Now sometimes you need to add some more frames, some more space around it, right? Like for instance here we have the planet touching the top and the bottom of the black background, and you'd like to have the whole thing black around it. So there's a couple of ways to work with that. One thing, first of all, also you notice there's the marching ants here indicating where the selection is. It's really selected everything here by default, but that does happen when you load an image. At times it sees a selection mask in a 32-bit image, or it implies that, and it shows it. That's no problem. You can just clear the alpha to get rid of that. All right, so now how do we put some borders, some more space around it? Basically increase the canvas size without changing the image itself. Well, we'll go and start and explore the image menu for that. So there's a lot of things to do with the image. And one of them is down here where it says resample and image size and crop to selection. These 3 kind of talk about using the space around it or grabbing more space, image size in particular. Let's have a look at that. So when you look at the image size option here, the middle is representing where the image currently is, and around it is where some additional space will come. Now if you click here, the space will be all on the lower right side, so the current image will remain in the upper left corner, and the new placeholder, the new canvas, will grow bigger to the right side and to the bottom. Let's say I want space above and below and also left and right. The current dimensions of the image is shown here. That's the original, the current size right here, 3648 pixels. And so if I want to add another 100 pixels or so above and beyond, I would just increase that. Maybe on the left I don't need to increase it. In fact, I could even make it smaller and cause it to crop a little bit. So I could perhaps bring it down to 3148, or let's make it exactly 3200 there. Right, but on the vertical side, that's where I want to add some, and I'm going to make that 2800. So that adds about 200 at the top and the bottom. All right, let's OK that. And then what you'll see here is that I've narrowed it left and right because I cut off some of that, and I've added some space above and below. But that space is added in a different color than the background color was there. This one was black, this one's white. Why is that? It's because my current background color in the system is not black, it's white, and that you see here. Those are the two main colors to worry about when, or to think about when you do this. When you work with erasing or creating new space around that needs to be erased to a default initial color, this is the color, the secondary color, that comes into effect. Right, so the primary color is black here, and that means we will be drawing with black. If we use the draw tool, we will be drawing black lines. The secondary color we can also use to draw with the right button, right? And it's also the color that's used for erasing. Let me go and undo that, right? And what you'll want to do is either prepare by making switching the two colors. You can drag it like this, or you can force the erase color, the secondary color, to black, or you can do that later on after it's been expanded and you have the additional space here. We can easily fill this white area to black. So all you got to do here is use the fill tool. Where's my fill can? Right there, right? And then go and indicate where you want to fill it. Now, right now, the fill color, the primary color, is white because I switched to 2. Right, so I will need to use the right button to fill here to black, and then that will fill it in there. And I can do the same thing here at the bottom. Right, so at this point I have both sides filled to black, and this area probably black also. Now it could be that maybe it's not exactly black, maybe it's a slightly different color, and you actually have a color pickup tool here, the turkey baster we call it, the color picker, same thing. You can click here to see what color it is actually picking up. And you'll probably need to see the options here somewhere, or display the colors. There's a couple of different color mixers, and some of them will show you the RGB values like there. If you click on RGB, it will show you what the color is. So as you go over the planet, you'll see kind of pinkish color, mostly red dominant, and a couple of green and blue values there too. But then over here it's black down to 0. In here it's still black, so perfect. This is all black background, exactly 0 on RGB. Alright, so that shows us how we can add a little bit of space around it. If we want to go faster about doing that, what you can do is make sure the background color is already black. And so that way, if I go and add more by doing this thing here, image size, right, and I say, oh, let's give it a little bit more on in the width. No, actually the width we can keep still the same, but let's bring it to the same value on height. So 3200 on the height. And basically what I'm talking about is adding some more at the top here and some more at the bottom as well, right? So essentially it will become a square image, 3200 by 3200. All right, let's OK that. And now this time I see that it's been initialized to black because the background color, the secondary color, is black, and it uses that to initialize that additional allocated space. All right, so keep that in mind. A number of tools may use the background color by default, and that's basically the lesson on this. The message on this lesson is that whenever you do something, like maybe it's creating a new animation, right, or you're using an option that will add some more space around the existing image, resample it or something. Sometimes it will ask for a default color, a color at which to operate, and typically that color is the erase color or the secondary color. We call it erase color sometimes, but most of the time we call it the secondary color or the right-click color, the one that you get when you paint with it with your right button. All right, and so here's another example. When you create an animation, you actually have a choice as to how to initialize it, right? Do you want to initialize those 30 frames that you're about to create? Do you want to initialize it by using the current frame, which is this image, so it will basically have a copy of that throughout the frame sequence? Or do you want to erase it, or clear it to the secondary color? All right. If you do that, then every frame will be at that secondary color initially, and that would be black in this particular instance. All right, so there's there's a couple of other places where you'll see that secondary color come in as a default color. There's, by the way, also here on the tools panel at the very bottom where the X is, the red X, that normally erases it to what color? You guessed it, to the erase color. So when you click this, bingo, everything goes black. Let me go undo, click the green back arrow here, and then you can actually also right click on the erase tool. Let me show you that. Let me move this up a little bit so it will not miss the bottom part of it. It will capture it all. So you can see you can actually direct it to clear specifically to the primary color, and that would clear it to white. Let's undo that one more time, and you can select to secondary color, which it does by default, but this is clearing the selection, meaning only what's been selected. Let me give you an idea. If I select the background here with the magic wand, for instance, right, let's go with the magic wand here, right? If I select that, and you got the marching ants all around it, and you got the marching ants along the edge of the planet. Now I have selected this black region, and I want to turn that into a different color. Maybe I'm going to turn it, I don't know, reddish, like this, orange. So you see the primary color is orange. I can now go and right click on this and say clear the selected to primary color, right? Clear selected to primary. And that's what it means. Is it's not going to clear the entire image. It's going to clear only the selection. By default though, when you just click here, it clears everything regardless of what your selection is. Right, so be aware of that. If you have a selection, and I'm going to make that selection happen again, that if you have a selection in effect, doing something like clear or selected will allow you to contain or to limit the erasing effect to just that area. So you see how now I erased the background to orange without affecting the inside of that, the way outside of that selection. And of course that's something where you can do a lot of really funky things too. I mean, if you use the selection tools like the rectangle selection tool or the oval selection tool, you can add to that selection with the shift key, and with the right button it will actually remove from the selection. So that's not what I want here. I want to add to the selection, so I'm using the shift key to add another selection on the inside, and then do another one, but with the right button to remove from that selection again. So now I have concentric rings, well, not perfectly concentric, but close enough, and some of them are selected and some of them are not selected. You might ask yourself which one is which. Now I started here with a selection. This one should not be selected, then this one should be selected, this one should not, this one should be, this one should not. And to really visualize that, you can go to the selection menu and store that to have a look at it. Right? Store alpha. This is in the alpha channel. The selection mask is in the alpha channel. So when you go with store alpha, you'll actually see what parts are selected. White is selected, black is not selected, gray is sort of in the gray zone. Anything in between, you can be partly selected. It's not just an on or off thing. You can have a partial amount of selection. And in fact, you'll see that if you blur it and then have a look at it in the alpha buffer that way. Let's see what happens now if I erase this, right? If I erase the selected to the primary, which is still orange. Let's double check that. Yep, it's still orange. Oh, let's use a different color here, primary green. So I'm going to erase the selected portions of the image, the white here, the white here, the white here, these rings, and the outside part here is going to be erased to the primary color, which is green. All right, so that's one more thing we can do in Dogwaffle, is to work with selections to create some really funky stuff. Talking about selections, there's a couple of effects here: the glow effect, drop shadow, and emboss by alpha. And if you click that, you get a little bit of an embossing effect. Not very visible in this case until you zoom in, because this is a fairly big image. So you would want to actually set the value on that embossing a little bit bigger than the default. Default is probably adjusted to very average sized images. This one's pretty big. So if I go to emboss by alpha, make it bigger, there we'll see a little bit more. Right, so we see that nice little embossing effect. Clear the alpha when you don't need it anymore, clear the selection. Very common shortcut here, Control D. Right, and so now you see that nice little embossing effect that it gave us. Alright, well that's all for today, and we'll continue on through our user interface and discovery of PD Pro Howler in another tutorial.